Afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Sarah Johnson. I'm the Chief Communications Officer here at the city. And before I turn it over to the mayor, I just want to remind everyone to stay on mute. There will be an opportunity for questions and answers at the end. But if you have an immediate question that you want to make sure gets addressed, please drop it in the chat. Otherwise, you can raise your hand and I'll call on you as soon as I can toward the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you all for joining this important briefing as it relates to the city's snow removal policy and planning. Before we talk about our key recommendations we're going to be announcing today, I want to just set the context in terms of what we discovered last week during last week's snow event. Last Monday, we experienced one of the largest accumulations of snow we've actually seen in a decade in Cleveland. And our crews worked and fulfilled the existing snow removal policy plan as written. But as many of you know, we learned quickly that that plan is not good enough to meet the demands and needs of all of our residents across the city. After Monday's snow event, I instructed our new COO, Bonnie Tulin, to really do a deep dive on what's working and what's not working, and really provide a roadmap to improve the existing way that we plow our streets all across the city. Let me tell you what the existing plan does. The current plan states that the main and secondary streets will be cleared first, and the residential streets are addressed only after the mains are passable. So again, what we do is we have to clear the main and secondary streets first before we get to all of our residential streets. And all across the city, we have over 10,000 streets that all of our crews and plows service. But here is the challenge. Our current policy does not account for snowfall intensity. It actually only accounts for the amount of snow. We got over 15 inches of snow that came really, really fast. Thus, we weren't really prepared for the magnitude of that storm. And so based on that analysis, we've come to the conclusion that we need a more dynamic and responsive system to better serve our residents when it comes to snow removal across our city. And we need greater flexibility to increase the fleet, to improve our response time. And also that will allow us to begin servicing our residential streets earlier at the same time we're actually plowing our main and secondary streets. So based on that knowledge, based on those lessons learned, I want to walk you through some key next steps and recommendations and our path forward as a city. It's our perspective that we will upgrade our equipment in phases, and we are evaluating shared resources all across the government to make sure we have all parts of the equipment we need to plow our streets in a more effective and prudent way. Currently, we have 59 dump trucks and 13 pickup trucks for snow removal. But also 10 of those trucks are down right now for maintenance. We are currently configuring 20 trucks from other departments across the city to service our residential streets a bit faster. Let me walk you through our path to identify those 20 additional trucks. We are evaluating the retrofitting of up to 10 existing trucks to include plow assembly. We've already are evaluating the use of 5 existing trucks for snow plow capabilities, and 5 new trucks have already been ordered. They were ordered actually last fall, but due to supply chain issues, we are expecting those to come as soon as possible. Currently, right now, we have 148 staff members dedicated to snow and ice removal all across our various departments. But what we want to do as we build this pathway to have 20 additional trucks, we'll be looking at other departments across the city to augment our existing workforce of snowplow drivers to better enhance our existing policy. Here's some other things we're going to do to improve snow removal across the city. You know, during a last Monday snow event, I was in constant conversation with leaders in public safety, the RTA, Downtown Cleveland Alliance, local hospitals and universities. And based on those discussions, we've come to the determination that we want to do a tabletop exercise, or rather a simulation, to ensure that we have more regional coordination across the region to ensure that our hospitals are easily accessible during high inclement winter events. We want to make sure that our bike lanes are accessible, that our bus stops and routes are accessible, and that our sidewalks are safe for all of our residents. And mind you, we got to make sure that our business owners and residents plow the sidewalks too, particularly for our children and our seniors. Here's the other thing we uncovered. When looking at our existing snow plow policy plan, right now we plow over 290 subsections. The way those routes are currently configured right now, it's all manual. And there's technology that actually exists that will allow us to actually create more efficient and prudent ways to have a more dynamic way to prioritize how we plow our streets in a more effective way to better serve all of our residents across the city. And some other exciting news, today we are also announcing the pilot of a public-facing snowplow tracker system that will give all of our residents the ability to see when their trucks are coming on their respective streets. Now we got a long way to go. It's a pilot, but I believe it's a good step in the right direction to give our residents transparent access to know when the snowplow is coming to their neighborhood. I'm going to turn it over to our COO, Bonnie, to talk about our new snowplow tracker. Bonnie?
Thank you, Mayor. I will share my screen to review how you get to our snowplow tracker and discuss a little bit with it. This is currently the city's homepage. We've put the link right now at the top of the page, the snowplow tracker. There's basically 3 ways that you can get to the tracker. Right now, it's at the top of the list here. If you want to go to the link that shows the live tracker, you can hit that More button underneath the Cleveland Now. You can pull that menu down and you can click More there, and that will get you to the link. And then on the right-hand side, we have the snowplow tracker button. All 3 of those are ways to get to the tracking. So we're trying to make it as obvious as possible that if somebody, if the residents want to come to the front page and they have some, need some information for where our trucks are, what they've done, it's obvious to them where they have to go. So I'm going to click this snowplow tracker button, and it will take me to this site right here. As the mayor said, this is a map that will continue to evolve. Right now, what we are showing, this is phase 1. Phase 1 is basically, it gives us a live feed. You can zoom in. It's the map of Cleveland, the different wards that exist. And you can zoom in as closely as you like. The dots are current locations of where our trucks are at this time. The truck movements get updated every 2 minutes. So as we're talking and we're looking at this, you'll be able to see the trucks moving from one location to the next. At this time, we're keeping track of when the plow trucks, when they have their plow down, it sends our GPS system a ding, and then it starts tracking where the plow has been. Now, this tracker will start at the beginning of each storm. The date that the storm, the event, as we call it, we physically start that timeline. So we started it yesterday at 9 p.m. So this is the activities that our trucks have had since 9 p.m. Yesterday. The green shows when they had their plows down. They might have been cutting back on some of the, to the curb lines, and it will keep track of this as we evolve through creating this interactive page. It will also show the number of times that a truck has gone down a particular route. Will also show, you'll be able to see when a truck is in your neighborhood. As we get into the plowings of the neighborhood, the information will start tracking through the residential streets in this area as well. Our goal would be to, if a resident has a concern, is wondering when a snowplow is going to be in their neighborhood, they should be able to go on this tracker. They can either type in their address here, or they can just zoom into where their street is. They can see that there's a truck in the neighborhood, and the hope would be that they're doing their residential streets first. Again, just so this is active now. You can go to our Cleveland website. You can get to the link here, or here.
Put that link in the chat right now. We haven't done so quite yet. Well, let me again just recap of what we just discussed. Based on last Monday's event, we uncovered that in our existing snow removal policy, it didn't account for the intensity of snow, but it did account for the amount of snow. And with the onboarding of 20 additional trucks with 20 additional drivers from existing departments across the city, once those drivers and trucks are in the fleet and ready to go, we will amend the policy that will allow us to plow and begin servicing our residential streets at the same time that we do our main and secondary streets. The second thing we've done based on the analysis from last week is we wanted to make sure we provided a platform where residents can go online and track where their plows are when we have a major snow event in the city. Again, it's phase one. We want to make sure we have upgrades and updated over time based on feedback from residents in the community, but we're looking at best practices from across the country to inform our worldview on this. But we wanted to make sure we got going quickly to respond to the needs of our residents. We're all learning as we go. Again, this was the biggest snowfall we had in quite some time in Cleveland, but our teams are on it. We're moving as fast as we can to serve our residents. And again, we will continue to update the public as things progress with our revised policy once we get more trucks in the fleet based on the recommendations we made today. With that, I'll kick it back off to my Chief of Communications, Sarah Johnson. Sarah?
Thank you, Mayor. We will now open up for questions. If you have a question, raise your hand or drop.
Hi, yes, thank you. I had seen on the calendar that you had released, Mr. Mayor, that you had met with Director Cox about a week before the snow event. I would assume you went down and learned a little bit about the city's operations. I guess I'm wondering, what did you learn in that meeting? Did you walk away from that meeting feeling good about the city's snowplow operations? And did this issue of intensity creating a bigger problem, did that surface at all? Or I'm wondering why it took until the storm, I guess, for us to learn that was the issue.
There are a couple of things. One, I had several really good productive conversations with Director Cox and the entire Public Works team during my transition to really kind of explore what resources we had in the department to prepare for any major snowstorm. I left those meetings just feeling, that we had the right tools in place. However, we all learned on Monday that there is an increased demand and need from residents to get to our residentials quicker. And that requires more trucks and more drivers to do that. And that's why we did the analysis. We identified that improvement and also wanted to make sure we had the ability for our residents to get more transparency, which led us to launch this tracker within a week's time based on feedback we received from the public last week.
Sam?
Thanks, Sarah. Mr. Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes, Sam. How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Good.
So I'm curious about the feedback from the drivers themselves. With this new technology in place, is there an expectation that the drivers will have to do anything more than they've normally done, or will the tech kind of happen automatically?
Bonnie, you want to speak to that?
Sure. Thanks for the question. Yeah, the drivers will not have any additional information or work that they have to do, that they can concentrate on plowing the roads like they have been. We have had the technology in the trucks already, GPS units in all the trucks. So if you've ever been to our Operation Snowbird, you probably saw some of the movements in the trucks on the screens that they have there. The only thing that's different right now is we're making it public facing, and we're making it more user friendly for the residents, that they can see where the plows have been, and they can see where the trucks are currently.
Perfect. Thanks, Bonnie.
And Sam, to your point, when I did visit Operation Snowbird, I was actually quite amazed that we actually had the technology to track where the snow plows were in the city. And it was something we were taking a look at in the early days of our administration. And Monday's event allowed us to accelerate the pace of that progress, which is, I think, a productive outcome for the entire city.
Hello. Yes. So obviously we're seeing a lot of goals for increasing the fleet and things like that. So I'm curious what the feedback has been from City Council. Obviously, money's going to have to get approved. How are we going to make sure that this goes smoothly and quickly? Obviously, we're already, the end of January, and so I'm kind of curious about a timeline as well.
Well, we will move as quickly as we can with the hopeful collaboration with council. I know many members of council reached out to me personally and our administration, giving us really honest feedback about improvements we can make. And we use those discussions to inform our recommendations today. So we will move as quickly as we can with the support of council.
See?
Hi there. Can you go over the plan again to ensure that sidewalks are taken care of when we have a snowfall of that volume? As you know, a pretty decent percentage of Clevelanders don't have a car and are using those sidewalks, who are having to walk in the middle of the street. I mean, even now, we're still seeing, people walking in the middle of the street. And then another question on top of that, you mentioned making sure businesses are clearing their sidewalks as well, holding them accountable. So my second question, I guess, is there a plan in that regard?
Important question. I think one of the things that we learned during last Monday's event is the importance of communications and really outlining who is responsible for what when we have a inclement winter event like we had on Monday. So it's one of our goals to make sure we're overly communicating with business owners and property owners across our city about their responsibility to plow the sidewalks. We also need to explore how to better support our seniors who may not have the ability to plow their sidewalks. And we'll have some conversations with our Department of Aging to take a look at that as well, too. I would also say this. I think for the first time during Monday's event, during the snowstorm, I was in constant communication with the leadership at RTA, Downtown Cleveland Alliance, and others about ways we could collaborate in real time. And it was the first time that had been done in a long time in Cleveland. And so based on last Monday's event, we all thought it was critical to come together over the next several weeks to do the simulation as a region to find better ways to collaborate and partner so that our residents are safe, can get to work, can get to school, and get to a hospital when we have a major winter event like we had last Monday. So again, it's a work in progress. I think everybody learned some critical lessons based on last week's event. And we just want to make sure that our residents know that we're all working to improve snow removal all across the city.
I'm going to read a question in the chat from Kevin Freeman at Fox 8. Will plowing residential and main streets simultaneously have impact on getting the main streets plowed efficiently?
I want to talk about that a little bit.
I'm sorry, Mayor, did you point to me? Okay, all right.
No worries.
Sorry. I wanted Sarah to answer that one. So, because we're adding the additional trucks and because we're reaching out into some of our other departments for additional drivers, it should not impact the primary and secondary streets because we're adding the additional equipment and manpower, person power to start in the residential streets.
And I would also say this, because I want to give our crews a word of kudos as it relates to last week's winter event. Per the policy, anytime we had a snow event of up to 6 inches or more, per the existing policy, it was advised that the mains, secondaries, and residentials will be done within 72 hours. Within 72 hours. Our crews and our teams last week, beginning when the snowfall event ended on Monday at 10 a.m., completed everything within 60 hours. So we met the demand of the policy by 12 hours. But what we realize is that our residents deserve better and deserve more. So we got to go back to the drawing board. And the biggest blind spot we saw in the policy was it didn't account for the intensity of the snow. It only accounted for the amount of the snow. So we need a more dynamic and responsive system to ensure that our residentials can get plowed just as quickly as we plow the mains and residentials as well too.
And this is able to be implemented with the next snowstorm?
Well, no, we have to make sure we can acquire the trucks. And once we acquire the trucks, then we can amend the policy, right? So it has to be done in phases. So we've already procured for 5 trucks last fall. They've been behind due to supply chain issues, which we're seeing affect many sectors of the economy right now. But as we get more trucks, we amend the policy based on the capacity of our current fleet.
And is there a timeline for that, Mayor? Is that something that could happen by the end of this season, or is that something that it might be for next winter?
We're working as aggressively as we can to get it done for this season, but we will keep the public abreast of the timeline and when we get additions to our fleet.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mayor, if I may, I'll add to that. We have trucks in our fleet already in different departments. Rather than just buying all new trucks, we're taking existing trucks and we're outfitting them with a plow, which is substantially cheaper by a factor of 10, I think, to do
more
that.
More cost effective. Yep.
Right.
So how do we do more of what we currently have right now? That's the key.
Right. So we have existing trucks, but again, to the supply chain issue, even to buy the assemblies, to get them in the shop and, do the hydraulics and modify some of the framework, there's a little bit of time lapse for all of that to happen. So it definitely not the next snowstorm unless it's not going to snow the rest of the year, which we can all hope, right?
All right, we have a few more questions. Nick, I want to turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Sarah. Thanks everyone for doing this. Mary, I think you said before that some of this process was being tracked manually. I saw pictures from one of the transfer stations where it looked like the drivers were tracing their routes with highlighters on paper. I mean, is that how you're keeping track of what you've done so far? Is this a paper system?
Well, right now that's the existing way in which routes are designed and how we currently keep track. There is technology that exists that we use in waste management that allows for them to plot where they're going, and the routes are designed in a more effective way. We want to leverage that technology in waste and apply it to snow removal so that our drivers can have a more dynamic and responsive way to prioritize where they go based on routes that make sense. Bonnie, you want to add to that as well?
Sure. So this is probably what you saw.
Yeah.
Is a driver taking this sheet. This is his assignment for his route. They get this, they keep it in the car or in their vehicle. That doesn't mean that this is necessarily what they go by. We still have the GPS technology. All of these routes were based on years of experience of our drivers and what's the most efficient route. And, they probably are very efficient, but we have technology now, to the mayor's point, where we can have consultants, computer programs that maximize the efficiencies of the routes. So they'll take all of our 10,000 routes, identify where the yards are, and they'll come up with an efficiency plan. Making right-hand turns with a truck is the most efficient thing that you can do. That's not always possible with our snow and ice routes, but we believe that if we purchase a program or hire a consultant that can review and analyze our routes, that we can save time, fuel, and effort on snowfalls.
Anne?
Oh, I'm sorry, did you say Diane? Okay. Hi, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mayor. I had two things to ask about. Questions that came up to me was the vacant lots. We were talking about the sidewalks. Who cleans those? We have some of the streets that have quite a few vacant lots on, and some of the seniors had problems with trying to walk because they're not owned by residents. And then the other thing that I wanted to point out, or you may have already been heard about that part too, it says the seniors have been complaining about how the drivers put all the snow into their yards and then they're not able to get out. And I know that's kind of a hazard part of the job, how the snow is going to go, but I don't know how that can be addressed that afterwards when we have seniors and wheelchairs and different things that can't get the snow out of their drive, if there is some type of service or something where they can call to accommodate that.
Thank you, Diane, for those important questions and points. A couple reflections. One, currently right now, we don't have any prescriptive rules on who plows a vacant lot. That's something we can take under consideration, and we will report back on that. Very good point. Secondly, I think that Bonnie has already mentioned this in our one-on-one conversations in our debrief, is that we need to really do a better job of working with our drivers to enhance and improve the curb technique of how snow gets plowed. And, maybe we should be talking to some of our suburban counterparts as well, too, about what they're experiencing and kind of share that feedback and best practice. The other thing that we want to take a look at for next winter in other cities like Washington, D.C., they have volunteers in every ward to help seniors, remove snow from their sidewalk and make sure that they are safe in their homes. And so we want to really be creative about how we can support our seniors during inclement winter events. That's why we wanted to make sure we did robocalls and text alerts all throughout last Monday's snowstorm, and that kind of continuous engagement won't stop as we move forward.
Great, we have time for one more, so I'm going to go to Councilman Polensek.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate your comments and your effort to deep dive into the issue of snow plowing and street maintenance. My question is, and my comment is, we have to remember that not everyone, in fact, a large number of our citizens don't have a PC, don't have a laptop. They're not going to go to a website. They don't have the ability to do that. And many of them just have a hard line. They don't even have a cell phone, as I can tell you firsthand. So I want to make sure that when citizens call in, whether it be to Snowbird or to whoever, that those lines are being adequately staffed. Because as we found out last week, those of us in city council who started to receive just volumes of calls, that people had an inability to get through. They were calling in, and it was rolling over, I believe, to 311. And then they were getting the elevator music. And then they were staying on the line. And I understand it's because of the volume of calls that were coming in, but then they were just hanging up. And then they were calling members of city council, as we found out firsthand. So again, I would hope that we take a good look at Snowbird, the call center, making sure that when we have advance notice of a storm's coming in, that we ramp that portion up, and that we take into consideration that we still have a lot of old school people who want to call in and report their street. Or I think, and I want to say this, I think your robocalls were very helpful. Maybe more robocalls to educate citizens as to what's the condition of the roadways, where we are as it pertains to the number of streets that have been hit so far. I think as much information as we can supply to our residents, the better off we're all going to be. It's transparency, it's clarity, and working together. And I appreciate your thoughts and your comments about really getting to the bottom, how many vehicles we need, how many drivers we need, how do we utilize other departments and divisions. It's all about teamwork. And so I commend you for your efforts to try to really get to the root causes of many of these problems that we've dealt with for years. So I'm thankful.
Thank you, Councilman Polincic. And I know that my 92-year-old grandma is not going to our new GPS snowplow tracker. I know that for a fact, right?
That's
and
right.
when I do those robocalls, I'm thinking about her. But I want to say this. I take full responsibility for the fact that over 1,000 calls didn't get answered last Monday. I take full responsibility for that. And we must work together, Councilman, to make sure we revamp our 311 system so it relieves a burden from you as council folks to handle all those complaints. It's not fair to you that those calls go unanswered on our end, and that burden shifts to you, right? And so I think if we can come together to revamp that system, we've already got some ideas brewing right now as you speak to revamp that system. We can work together on it, but we have a long way to go. But now is the best time in order to get this done to better serve our residents.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank
you. Thank you guys for your time today. I know it's not the most creative topic, but it's an important one because we got to get the basics right. We appreciate your hard work and support and looking forward to our next steps.